Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the LiveFitNow Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have had a wonderful week so far. Today, I have a conversation with a very lovely lady who has been on her very own journey to find self-love and now helps others find their very own. I can't wait for you to listen to today's conversation. As always, I'm very excited to share it with you. So without further ado, here's the conversation. My guest today became a coach to help people to feel enough, to see what they can't see yet, to get women choosing to rise to all that they are, living in their full potential without striving or burning out. Doing more won't necessarily bring better results, or any results for that matter. A coach, a podcaster, and well-being advocate. Welcome to the Live Fit Now podcast, Kirsty Dee. How are you today?
Oh, I'm so well. Thank you for having me. And I love that introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I would just love to start by allowing you to share your story, how you've reached this point in your life, what your background is, what your experience is, and why you do what you do.
Oh gosh, where to start? So I'm 34 now, and I spent most of my life not feeling enough. You know how they say, we weren't born not feeling enough and this, that, and the other. And I do agree with that to some part. However, there are some children who are just not as confident for whatever reason. And that was definitely me. And, to go into my childhood, there was like trauma there, really just didn't feel enough. There was sexual trauma, there was different forms of abuse and stuff. So I always kind of like just grew up and I never really felt like I belonged, which I guess created this desire for me to help others. I never wanted anybody to feel the way I felt. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I left school and I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm just going to do holistic therapies. And my only reason for doing it, in all honesty, was just like, well, I'm sure like, a good massage or something like that's got to help somebody feel good. So over the years, I've done various kind of different wellness things, and I was like an fitness instructor at one point. And again, it was really helping women to feel good about themselves. But basically in 2018, we went through, just a really, really hard period in our life. And I had this kind of like moment where everything was just so bad, and I was like really mad, and I was like mad at the universe, and just like angry, and I was like, why is this happening, and blah, 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 and just really just kind of on this warpath, and just felt really broken down. And just I can remember I was like literally shouting at the air. It's gonna sound so ridiculous, and I was like, I'm a good person, why is these things keep happening to me? And I put on, it was actually a Danielle Laporte audio, and she said, sometimes you've just got to choose to rise. And it's going to sound ridiculous, but it was really one of those pivotal moments for me where I realized, and I think this is very, very relevant right now, being in a pandemic, that we can't control everything that happens outside of us. We just can't. But the one thing that we do have control of is how we treat ourselves and loving ourselves. And I realized wherever I go, I've got to take myself. So if I'm not being kind to me, if I'm not taking care of me, if I'm not doing the deep stuff, because what I realize now, looking back, doing all the other stuff, like getting into shape and this and the other, so important. I mean, this. But it's like, what about getting deeper than that? What about like where I don't feel enough, where I don't feel good enough, where I don't feel like I belong? So I just literally started there, doing self-love work, deep self-love work. And then because I already had an audience with all the wellness stuff I'd done, I just started sharing it. And it made such a difference, not to my life, but not only just to my life, but to other people's, even in the very beginning when I didn't really know what I was doing. And everything started shifting. And then with what I learned, I just started doing like, little events in my living room. And doing live videos on what I'd learned, and then that turned into me becoming a coach. And yeah, it's amazing, really rewarding, and yeah, it's been really, gosh, it's been so fulfilling and changes lives, you know. So yeah, I'm really proud of it.
So you should be. It's amazing how much we need to evolve ourselves, I think, to be able to help others on their own evolutionary journey. And do you think for you there was that moment when you took a deeper care of your own well-being, that you were able to help others more?
Yeah, we've got to embody it ourselves. And before, whilst I was helping people, again, it's only to the level that, you know, you're taking care of yourself. And that there wasn't anything wrong with anything I did before. It was just it's what we're ready for, and I didn't know any different. And at, you know, different levels we need different things. But I found as we, you know, get older, and I think particularly when you start hitting your 30s, 40s and above, we realize we need more than that, you know. And you have to go deeper, because even like you know, with exercise and stuff, and I'm sure you know that, it's like we know all these things, but sometimes we really, really struggle to implement them, you know. And there's generally something deeper there, you know, some worthiness stuff, and then we beat ourselves up, like, why can't I stick to this?
Yeah, I think we're surrounded by a lot of very superficial things, and I think there's almost a feeling that all you need to worry about is that superficial stuff, but actually we need to become more in tune with our own bodies and minds, and
Yeah,
feeling that connection and listening to ourselves, because actually our bodies tell us stuff all the time that I think a lot of people are completely disconnected with. And once you can reconnect, it allows you to evolve through every decade of your life, because new challenges and things are going to come up.
yeah,
And to have that core foundation built and something that you can continue to use in the way that it needs to be used at the time is so much more powerful than just all of the superficial things you can potentially follow along with and tick the boxes.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, there's nothing wrong with kind of, you know, wanting the superficial thing. So like, take for instance, you know, when I was like, you know, getting into shape, it was really just because, to be honest, I didn't, you know, feel good in my body. So I wanted to get, you know, I wanted to feel better in my body. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, it helped me get healthier, which was actually good for me. But the thing is, I got into really good shape, and I was really fit. And I say fit kind of lightly, because my body was fit, but my mindset and how I felt about myself wasn't. So I think, well, now looking back, I would say I'm much fitter now. Maybe it's not as physically fit as what I was when I was a fitness instructor, but kind of like mentally, well-being wise, emotionally, much fitter. But if I'd never kind of gone down the path of fitness, and this is why I think fitness can be really, really beautiful in many ways, I'd have never gone down a wellness path. I went down a fitness path because I wanted to feel better about my body, but it didn't work. Sure, my confidence went up, but you know, the answer is not in losing the weight or gaining the weight. But for sure, those things, you know, can help us. But as you know, it's when we really truly get into, you know, real wellness.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Fitness can open the door, and it did for me as well. It can open the door to allow you to start paying more attention to yourself. You can
Yeah,
learn a lot about yourself, and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone as well. I think that's a really good thing to experience. And then it can often allow you to open other doors. It's a really,
yeah,
even though it's not necessarily an easy door for a lot of people to take, it's probably one of the most easily opened. And it does then
yeah,
trigger other things to perhaps be more open-minded with, or trying, or you might just meet some different people that have some different perspectives that allow
yeah,
you to try different things. And I think that is a powerful thing about fitness, that it can start that journey, but it's
yeah.
the beginning rather than the destination.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you're doing, right here. And I think just connecting with other people and realizing you're not alone is huge. And for me, I think, like, let it be the doorway that opens up so many things.
So what from your past are you still using, and what have you completely reinvented? How do you choose to help people now?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. One of the things that, actually, I would say from my kind of past, I guess it depends how far you're looking. But I mean, I've always talked about self-love, so that's never changed. But what has changed, what's been massive for me, is what self-love is now. I think before I didn't really know what it was. I think I thought it was kind of the self-care stuff, so whether it was meditating, whether it was exercise, and of course they're all part of it, all part of taking care of yourself. But there can also be this element of trying to fix ourselves, of like, it can become off like a thing of like, I know for me it was kind of like, I would go into, say, for instance, a meditation with an agenda. I was like, I don't feel great. I need to meditate. I need to be able to quiet my mind. And then I feel really rubbish if I couldn't then quieten my mind. I would feel like I'd failed. So now what I say to people is like, the way I define self-love is the relationship to yourself. And if I'm, say, meditating or whatever I do, I take the agenda away, because if you're with somebody and they've got an agenda with you, it doesn't feel good. So if we go into kind of like a workout or a meditation, and we have this agenda, like, I'm going to work out because I want to lose X amount of weight. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you then don't lose the weight, you're going to feel like a failure and you're going to feel not enough. If you go into a meditation going, oh, I need to quieten my mind, and then you don't manage to quieten your mind, you're going to feel like a failure and you're going to feel not enough. So what I say to people is like, see it as a relationship with yourself. Let the agenda go. Sure, set the GPS of where you want to go. So, if that looks like, I want to get fitter and stuff, that's a beautiful thing. But don't put yourself in this timeline of, I've got to be here by then, because otherwise you're instantly in lack, and you're instantly not feeling enough, and you're instantly not feeling good about yourself. And then you've put your worth outside of you on, if I can quieten my mind, if I can feel calm, if I can feel relaxed, if I feel fit in my body, then I'm enough and then I'm worthy. But it's like, no, you're just innately worthy, not because of some external thing outside of you. So I say to people, like, meditate, exercise, whatever you want to do the deep root stuff, but do it because you're worthy of that time. Like, you would sit with your friends or anyone you love, and you would sit with them just because you wanted to, because they're worthy, not because you're like, oh, they're in a bit of a funk and I need to quieten them down. You wouldn't do that. So it's like, love yourself enough to have that same attitude with yourself.
We set a lot of hurdles in front of our own goals, I think, and so such a common mindset is the whole all or nothing. And I think that's very much linked with what you've just said. And rather than thinking something always has to be done to the level that you believe it has to be, actually sometimes just showing up to do it is enough. The fact that you're giving yourself the time to meditate or exercise or whatever it may be, that's enough. Doesn't matter how supposedly well it goes, but the fact that you've given yourself that time allows you to take that step in the journey. It doesn't necessarily always have to be making progress, but you are, by just showing up.
Yeah, and that will make a difference. I mean, this consistency is huge.
Yeah, it's the key for most things in life.
Yeah, if you keep doing it, you will feel better. Things will change in your life. But as soon as you kind of like look at it and it's like, oh, it hasn't happened straight away, and you want that instant gratification, you instantly feel not enough. You instantly feel like it's not working. You instantly, want to quit. And it's just like, no, just love yourself enough to know that you're worthy of that, and you don't need to get an external result, because you are the result, because you're the one who's taking yourself wherever you go. And I think that's huge. So yeah, I've totally kind of remodeled what self-love is, because I think, you know, if you used to say to somebody self-love, that can maybe feel unachievable to a lot of people. And so
feels too far away.
Yeah, so for me, self-love is not about being able to look in the mirror and kind of go, oh, I'm amazing, this, that, and the other. For sure, we can certainly get there. And when you keep doing this, actually, you stop comparing yourself, because that's why we feel less than, because we look at somebody else and we feel less than. But for me, it's like, no, like, let's take it right down to the root. Self-love is the relationship with yourself. So let's start with self-compassion and being a friend to ourselves.
Speaking only words you'd say to your friends, because the way people talk to themselves is most often a way they would never talk to someone they cared about, but yet within their own body they will talk to themselves that way.
Yeah. And the thing is that, you know, when you're on this journey, that voice will come up. It, you know, comes up for us all, where something will happen and we'll kind of go, oh my gosh, you know, why did I do that? Or we'll feel not enough. And I think the big thing that I want to say to people is, like, when that happens, you haven't failed, you haven't done anything wrong. It's just that, you know, our mind is, you know, it regurgitates the same thoughts over and over and over and over again. So you know, our job is to become, you know, a friend to ourselves, so that kind of inner dialogue, you know, starts changing. So, you know, as you start on this path and you'll be doing really well, and just out of nowhere that thought can come up, and what really makes the difference is how we treat ourselves when it comes up. You know, we don't have to buy into every thought we have, and that's kind of the key, because I would kind of work with women and stuff, and they'd be like, okay, I'm trying, but this voice in my head is persistent and it keeps telling me, like, it's not going to work out for me and I'm not enough. And I'm like, okay, so that voice that's coming up, that is kind of like your survival. Because if you kind of look at, like, you know, kind of like primal time, we wanted to fit in, to stay in the pack, because I don't know if you've ever spoke about this, but, like, you know, with all kind of the wildlife and stuff, it was really hard to survive on our own. So we had this kind of need to want to fit in, to stay alive. And it's like, that's kind of still in us. So that actually voice comes up for your survival. So for me, it's like, when that voice comes up, rather than, like, you know, beating yourself up and, you know, kind of regurgitating the pattern, it's just like, I hear you, I see you, and I'm not going to shove it down, and I'm going to feel my feelings, but also I have to stop buying into that. You know, it's huge.
It is, and it's interesting. You're absolutely right. There's so many things that are ingrained within us, and then there are societal things, of which is changing rapidly. You know, our society is constantly evolving and we are not keeping up with it, but we have these new ideals that people feel that they have to fit into, but actually it doesn't necessarily sit with the little head in their little voice in their head, rather. And it takes time to adapt, and I guess to know which bits you want to listen to of each. And if that little voice has been nagging in your head for 10, 20 years, it's unlikely to go away overnight. It's going to take time to work at that.
Yeah. And this is again where it comes back to the same thing, giving yourself time. But that's the thing that we often don't do, and we often fight with. And then, like I say, if that voice kind of comes up, or especially if we're going for something new, it's gonna come up, because it doesn't know if it's safe. And its job, you know, your brain, your mind, ego, whatever you want to call it, its job isn't your happiness. Its job is your survival. You know, it actually doesn't really care that much about you being happy, not because it's being mean, but it's just not its role.
No, it's protecting you.
And actually, if anything, you being happy is almost a threat to it, because it can be like, oh, you're quite relaxed about this, you know, and it's not its job. So when we can recognize that, we can shift so much. But this is kind of what happens. People kind of go, oh, okay, right, I'm going to start taking care of me, and then that voice comes up and it takes over. So my work is really how we deal with when that voice comes up.
And I imagine a big part of the conversations you have is about patience. I think it's one of the hardest things within our society. Look at Amazon. I mean, it's literally, we expect things, I was going to say next day, but even the same day now for some things. And that concept is known by our brains. So it's not particularly patient for actual things that are to last a lifetime. There are things that we do for our well-being and self-care that actually we will end up doing for the rest of our lives in some form or another. It's not about doing it for 2 weeks and then suddenly you're at the destination, because it's a lifelong quest, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I kind of talk to people about, and I call it, like, stop fighting with the timeline, because you're with yourself for as long as you're here, and we know all great relationships you show up for. And so if I think about sort of like my relationship with my husband, like, I want to be together until we're old and grey, and until we're no longer here. So, like, we work at our marriage, and I don't kind of go, oh, okay, well, I can ignore him all day and he can ignore me all day and expect our marriage to kind of bloom and stuff. We both know that we're not responsible for each other's happiness. We both have to take care of ourselves. However, we both have to treat each other with respect and stuff, and really, really nurture that relationship. So it's the exact same thing with yourself. Like, self-love is not something you tick off. It is a relationship. And if you kind of go, okay, I'm not going to take care of me, but next month I will, because I'm not so busy next month, and then expect to feel good, it doesn't work. And that's when people can kind of feel this pressure, and they're like, oh my gosh, Kirsty, I'm so busy, I haven't got a lot of time and stuff. And it's just like, no pressure. Take the pressure off yourself. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It isn't a to-do list, like you've got to meditate and you've got to do this. It starts with literally compassion, being a friend to yourself, knowing what you need. But it's daily work. Again, it's the consistency. Any relationship that you want to work, and obviously, some relationships, we don't see people as much, but there's still a level of, the ones that work, respect and stuff. There's still some level of consistency, although it will look different depending on the type of relationship. The relationship with yourself, when you take care of you, all your relationships really, really start thriving, except the ones that aren't serving you. Because the ones that aren't, the people who are loving on you for you want you to take care of yourself. And that's just the way it is. They do.
Yeah. Time is our most precious resource, really. And it's how we choose to spend it. I mean, I so often have conversations with people, and they always put their own well-being last. It's everyone else around that they're going to put first, and them taking some time for themselves. I think they almost feel like they're being selfish, but actually once they start to do it, they realize they can give so much more. And actually you're empowering yourself by taking a little bit of time, and actually you will end up getting more time back overall, because you're going to be in a better physical and emotional situation.
Yeah, it's like, I've got 2 kids, and when I'm taking care of me, I'm a much better mum. And this has been challenging, when lockdown happened, and my kids only went back to school yesterday, and it was a really, really challenging time. And you just, it's like what I say, it's just like, you have to, again, you have to adapt, because how I looked after myself before kind of lockdown stuff was very different, and again, I had to kind of have grace with myself, because things that were working then no longer were sustainable in lockdown. But however it looked, me taking care of myself meant I could be a better mom. you know, because when I'm kind of burnt out and I'm really, really struggling, you know, then that affects my patience and everything. And the other thing is, I love this. There's this quote by Brene Brown, and I absolutely love it. And it hit me hard when I heard it. And it was like, "Are you the parent you wish your child to be?" And for me, and it's not about you know, wanting your children to be like you, because we want them to be their own people. But in terms of how you're treating yourself, is that what you'd want for your child? So for me, particularly having a daughter, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want her beating herself up, thinking she's never done enough, that she's not enough, not taking care of herself. So I have to show my children how I take care of me, because otherwise it's just like blah, 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 whatever you say, but you don't do it. And it's the same with your friends. You can say to your friends, like, love yourself, you're enough. But if they see you, you know, being mean to yourself, putting yourself down and stuff, you know, they're just going to be like, okay, well, again, you know, whatever. So for me, it's like, whatever we want to kind of see more in the world, so if it's more kind of people being more loving, it has to start with you being loving to yourself, because love that doesn't include you is not love, it's people pleasing.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's so true. And I think it's a really interesting point that I've seen a lot of people that I've worked with. You can tell your kids or people around you as much as you like, but particularly kids, they do what they see. They don't necessarily do what they're told. So the
Absolutely.
best way to get them involved with anything you want them to hopefully carry on with for the rest of their lives is getting them to see you doing it and let them join in if it's an appropriate thing for them to have a go at. Because
Yeah.
why not? It's going to become that's just a normal part of your life. It's like you often have conversations with people potentially about your childhood, because obviously your childhood is what your normal is, but then you start to see what other people's childhood was like. You're like, oh, I just thought these things were normal, but actually that's a whole different experience. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting, and how important it is actually to have that communication with people, because it allows you to have a different perspective on the world, and it gives you different options then how you can choose to go on and live.
Yeah, I think the childhood thing and family dynamics is such an interesting one, because obviously when you're in your child, you know, you just think, okay, that's it, that's how, you know, everybody's experiences. And actually the thing that's came up for me with like working with a lot of women is like, a lot of kind of our fears come from family stuff, come from judgment and stuff, because you know, they're our family and it's all we've known for a long time. So a lot of us, you know, are scared to take care of ourselves or look after ourselves, because family and other ones may think that in doing so that you're selfish or it's vain. And as I say, we have this kind of primal thing in us, you know, to just want to fit in, to belong. You know, we have this need to feel like we belong. So this is when, you know, we self-sacrifice and try, you know, to keep family happy. And like, you know, I know people who, you know, are still trying to make parents proud, even though they're not here anymore. You know, it really, you know, the stuff that happens when we're younger, often we don't even realize some of it, you know, has been traumatic. Or like mother-in-law or some sort of in-law, we're really worried what they think of us. And yeah, it's huge. And I think when you can kind of break away from that and realize that you trying to make everybody approve of you and trying to make everybody happy, not only is that disempowering and exhausting for you, but it actually doesn't help them, because it keeps perpetuating it. And what it really says to the other person unconsciously is your happiness is outside of you, and it's based on what I do, you know, and if I do what you think's good, then you get to be happy. And it actually doesn't work. So when we can have the courage to break away from that, and that's why I said earlier, the people that are loving you for you, they're going to be happy for you, even if it's straight away. It kind of becomes a shock when you take care of you. They'll actually kind of realize and see the power in that. And if, you know, you've got family members or whatever that don't get it, that can be really, really hard. And it's recognizing that whilst it's hard, you're going to be okay. But the alternative, that price of constantly burning yourself out to try and keep everybody happy, the price is too high, and it does hurt you.
It's the impossible challenge, isn't it, really?
Gosh, it's
because
it's that.
happiness can only truly come from within.
Yeah.
Probably surrounded by the right people, but ultimately still within, because if you're changing your thoughts and your actions to please other people, it's very likely that it's not necessarily sitting with actually how you feel. So it's always going to feel off.
Yeah.
And always trying to meet a threshold also that you could have got it all wrong. Like, you could have interpreted what someone, an external person, thinks and expects, but actually that's not true at all. It's just miscommunication, and then you're trying to please someone, not even in the right way. You're not happy, they're not happy, and no one's getting anywhere, and no one's gonna get that joy from anything.
Yeah, often we're like projecting things, and it's our own inner fear and stuff. You know, we're second guessing, you know, what other people think, and I think this is like really, really huge, and it's one of the things. It's like, you know, most people, because we all have our own stuff, you know, we've probably all heard this before, but you know, what people think of you is none of your business, and it really is. And the thing is, often when we think, we're worried what other people think. And I think this can be, you know, sometimes a bit of a like, oh, they're not thinking of me, but actually most people aren't thinking about you. They're worried about themselves, and we can be like, oh, what does that mean? Do people not care? It's not that. It's they have their own worries and their own fears as well. And it sounds like such a cliche, but you are so right. Happiness really is an inside job. Like, the external stuff can for sure enhance it, but you can have, like, without this kind of core kind of relationship with yourself, if anything, you know, we see this all the time, that somebody's so-called got what society would call success, and I know Tony Robbins talks about this, how that can be the ultimate failure. And this is why, you know, sometimes people go on to take their lives, because like, I got all this stuff that I thought would make me happy, and I realized I'm not. And that's the hardest thing, you know, when somebody does achieve it. And I often think not feeling enough is why people become the overachievers. And not everybody, for sure, but there is a lot of this striving, like, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get this, I'll be happy. And actually, it's just masking some kind of trauma or not feeling enough within. And all, like, you know, I love kind of external things. And I've actually realized on my self-love journey, there's nothing wrong with, you know, kind of liking, you know, whatever it may be, kind of outside of you and stuff, but it's not the answer.
No, you can take joy from things, but it doesn't mean your happiness is only waiting upon that thing to be part of your life. It's just simply a pleasure. And do you work with people to try and find the things that they love? Because I think once you have that tool belt, like, for example, in this year, you know, a lot of people have had to pivot and change what their routines were. But if you've got the appropriate tool belt, you can actually evolve and realize, oh, actually, I like doing this or this, and I can just evolve into that. And then maybe at some point I'll be able to get back to my old routine, but it doesn't matter. I don't need all of those things to allow myself to develop. Yeah.
And the thing that I say to people is follow your curiosity. And we were conditioned not to do that. You know, we were told curiosity killed the cat and all of that. But if you think of like a child and stuff, they're such free spirits. And again, they don't have that agenda. They're not like, I'm painting this picture because it's gonna be like whatever. They just do it. But we tend to do things because we want it to lead to something, and we have this agenda. And again, this comes with like not feeling enough. And it's just like, you have no idea how that little thing can change so much. So it could be like, for instance, somebody discovering this podcast, followed their curiosity. Oh, that sounds intriguing. And that can shift so much. As I talked about earlier, like, it was that one kind of pivotal moment where I heard the word, sometimes you just got to choose to rise. But I didn't go into that, like, with this agenda. I was just like not feeling in a good place, and intuition, and we often don't recognize it's intuition, will tell us to, you know, to do something and guide us, and we often don't listen to it. But the little things add up. It's like what I'm doing now was just following, you know, that intuition nudge that said, love yourself. You know, follow your curiosity, and it could look for you, you know, I want to meditate, or I want to start going to that class, I want to start painting, I want to read that book, I want to listen to that podcast. But if you follow that without any agenda, it will lead you somewhere really good.
Yeah, I really like that. And when you had your pivotal moment, did you look for a coach? Did you have a guide in getting to where you are now, or were you just exploring your curiosity? Did it just...
Yeah, I didn't sort of, you know, as I say, I didn't really have this agenda. I just realized that, you know, if there was somebody that was gonna, you know, make my life good, and it wasn't this external thing, it was going to be me. So it was literally just following what came up. So when I had that moment, I realized that the importance of self-love was huge, and I didn't know how to do it. I can remember thinking, I don't know how to do this. And again, following my curiosity, I was like, Louise Hay, because I'd heard that you know, she was like one of the, I think, the earliest people that I know about, and there'll have been people before her and all of that who did self-love work. So I was literally just listening to Louise Hay on YouTube, because actually we were in a really financial bad place. We were living with in-laws at the time. We could no longer afford our home and stuff. So I utilized, you know, first of all the free stuff, and then as I started doing self-love work, I did start investing in myself with money and stuff, because what I've realized is our best security is ourselves. And I really believe when we invest in ourselves, it comes back at us. But if somebody's not in the financial position, what I wouldn't want to do is put anybody in survival mode of thinking that they have to spend above their means. I'm like, you start off where you're at. And for me, it looked like I'm worthy of the time to do some self-love work. And for me, that was actually listening to Louise Hay on YouTube. And I felt, oh my gosh, if anyone hears what I'm listening to, they'll think I'm absolutely crazy. And somebody else starting on their self-love journey will look completely different. Again, it comes down to following your curiosity and where that leads you to.
Everyone needs to start in their own point, I suppose. Everyone has the thing that might trigger them to start looking at it, and then it can unravel into everything else within your life. But you just never know when that trigger moment can arise. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's knowing that it's, again, it sounds like such a cliche, but I really truly do believe the best answers are inwards. And I feel like if you're listening to this podcast and any of your podcast episodes, you're already listening to that, you know, because not everyone would listen to a podcast or self-help or wellness and stuff. And I think, like, start trusting yourself, you know, and again, drop the agenda and know it will lead somewhere. But if you're working on the relationship with yourself, you're always going to do pretty well from that. As I say, any relationship, like for instance, if you go through something hard, you know, you can either be mean to yourself and, you know, beat yourself up about it, or you can take care of yourself. And one way, you know, is going to help you, and the other way is going to, you know, be very detrimental. So for me, it's always going to do you well, even if you're going through a hard season, you taking care of yourself, because whatever you do, it's got to be sustainable, you know, or you can't keep it going. And it's not sustainable if you don't take care of yourself.
No, that's a really interesting concept. I do think self-doubt and a lack of trust in yourself can hold you back so much. It's the self-imposed limitations, and actually pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone teaches our brain that we can do more, and those things that you think you can't do, once you've done it, the threshold, it's widened your horizons. And it's interesting. So when I'm teaching people to lift weights, very often the first time I hand them a heavier weight, they like, no, I can't do this, I can't do that much weight. and they might find it easy or struggle at first set, and then we go to set number 2, and then they feel that difference. That second time they pick it up and do it, it's easier, because the first time their brain's saying, no, we can't do this, no, trying to protect yourself, no, we don't want to touch this weight. But the second time you pick that weight up, your brain knows it can do it, your body's already done it, and it becomes 10% easier because your mind then knows that you can do it. So I think it's a really useful tool to try and figure out how we can push ourselves out of our comfort zone, just little by little, and build a stronger and more resilient body and mind.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this is why a lot of kind of coaches recommend the power of visualization. Is that thing, if you can see it in your mind, you can have it, because your brain doesn't know if this is real or not real. And this is why so many people do kind of use visualization and stuff. But when you're going for something new, whatever you're doing, and again, this is where it can trip us up, that voice will come up and it'll say, I don't know if I can do this. And it's just trying to keep you alive. So when you can recognize that if you're going for something new, doubt's going to come along with you. And if you keep going and you stop buying into that, and have grace for yourself and have compassion with yourself, and realize your nervous system may need, calming down, there's so much power in that. But a lot of us, the doubt comes up and we kind of go, oh, well, that must be true, I therefore can't do it. And the exercise that, what you said about weights, that's a perfect example of that. Because actually we're always more powerful, and we can always do more than we realize. And we actually have, none of us really know our own kind of brilliance, and we all have it. Nobody's the chosen one who's not enough, who doesn't have gifts and doesn't have talents. Nobody, because none of us are that kind of special, and I mean that in the most loving way, but we're not. Nobody came here the chosen one. How everybody who's enough, they're not.
You all have to learn. We all have to learn. Yeah. People will always be apologetic of, oh, I'm asking you a stupid question. Well, of course it's not stupid. Why on earth would you be expected to know that? No one's born knowing it. I've learned it at some point. The top athlete in the world has had to start out at some point. Everyone has to start as a beginner. And again, it comes back to that patience. Like, it's okay that you don't know it, but you want to find out. That's great. How exciting. There's so much more to learn. And I think approaching it with that mindset, rather than thinking, oh, I should know this, I should already be able to do this. It's like, well, no, that's not how it works. You can't know what you don't know. You've got to allow yourself to open the doors and learn. There's no stupid questions. There's just not. And like you said, we don't know, until we know, until we do it. And I think this is one of the things that trips us up, thinking we have to know everything. But you actually don't. It's like I say, follow your curiosity, just take the next step. And any kind of like professional started off as an amateur, like you said, they started off, they didn't know how to do it and stuff. And, when it kind of comes to your life, nobody can know better than like you taking care of you, because it's your life. Yeah. Taking away that level of comparison, I think, in most things in life is going to make you feel so much more content, because you don't know anyone else's story. You don't know the path they've taken to get here, and what they would be happy with might be the complete opposite to what makes you happy. So it really is helpful to look more inwardly than outwardly. There's nothing wrong with seeing what other people are up to, because you might be inspired by something they're doing, but not necessarily, and just not measuring yourself by it. Because if you're not in a competitive environment, which normal life shouldn't be, that's very set things really, but I think actually the competition has seeped into every aspect of life, and I think that becomes really challenging when you do want to just be happy with what you've got.
Often we're comparing ourselves, and actually if we would try on somebody else's lifestyle, it wouldn't be for us anyway, and if we were just given that, to be honest, a lot of us would crumble, because what I say to people, the thing that you want, it's an inside job, but also you have to acclimatize to that, because you know, we're all worthy. We're all worthy of the things we want, right? But if you were just say given it, that thing that you thought was going to make you happy, again, you become that kind of person who got the thing and still doesn't feel enough, you know. And or, you know, you get the thing, and you can't hold on to, you want the next one, you know, and then the next one, because you don't feel enough, and you can't hold on to it. You will start kind of going, no, I'm not worthy of this, you know.
You reach the summit of the mountain, and then you see the next summit, and you've got to go to that one. And you never quite reach the top.
Yeah, you know, it's the answers, and not outside of us. And all these things sound such a cliche, but there is medicine and wisdom in the cliche stuff.
There's a reason it's stuck around.
Yeah, it absolutely. That, you know, because it works.
Yeah.
You know,
I so often say, and often in the context of weights, but actually I think in just life and having a healthy lifestyle, it's actually really simple. Like, I think sometimes people, and you know, there's a lot of money to be made, I guess, in making it sound complicated and there's a magic answer, but actually almost all of this stuff is really, really, really basic. But that doesn't make it easy. In fact, it's really hard. You know, it's simple stuff, but it's hard to do, to be consistent and to allow yourself to focus on what you want, not what society's telling you, but still feeling like you're going to fit in. Like, it's hard, but most of all the things we need to do are super simple. It might be as much as, you know, running a bath and relaxing for 20 minutes, going for a walk. They can be such simple things, but it doesn't make it easy to do forever.
Yeah, because we think it can't be that simple, you know, because that can almost kind of be a punch in the gut. That, you know, I've been running around not feeling enough, burning myself out, and the answer was right in front of me the whole time: take care of myself. You know, and it's really, really hard to trust that, because it's at some point you will have been hurt, probably numerous times. You will have failed at something. So we stop trusting ourselves, and we're looking for this kind of this fix outside of us, this answer outside of us. And when we actually start trusting ourselves, and when we start taking care of ourselves, that's hard to do, to build that relationship. But I would also argue it's also much harder and much more exhausting not. So when you first start trusting yourself, you can be like, oh, is this going to work out? And as I say, that voice will kind of come up. The shortcut is doing the inner work. And because it's actually, as I say, way harder to be feeling not enough. But it is initially hard to trust that it gets to be that simple. And I'm not saying it's simple as in it will happen overnight, because as I say, the relationship to yourself is a relationship, so it's like a lifelong thing. But when you think about your relationships that you love, it's not a chore. You want to be in that, and you want to be with them forever. So actually doing this work, when you get started, it actually gets to be fun and enjoyable, and it's not hard work. You realize you're worth the effort, and I think that's the big shift.
Yeah, it's finding your own path, isn't it?
Yeah. It's huge.
How do you work with people? Has COVID changed how you're working with your clients, or have you had to evolve, or are you still going strong?
Yeah, no, actually things have grown for me in COVID. My actual big plan, and this is why I say you've got to love yourself and stuff, and you know, you will evolve and things around you will change, and you know, being able to kind of adapt, which again means having that relationship with yourself and trusting yourself. But my plan for 2020 was to, you know, bring out my book and do events and stuff, and none of those things happened because obviously can't do events. And my book kind of completely got put on hold with having the kids at home. And then I kind of decided, actually, I didn't want to bring it out in the middle of a pandemic, because I want to do it, when I can do it with an event and everything. And also this experience of actually, it's all of this, all that I've kind of learned is actually all been really, really good stuff to put in the book. So I've actually moved the book back. So yeah, I kind of threw myself into doing more online, which I was doing anyway. But so I do kind of like online programs and stuff, and I do most of it kind of all live via Facebook, because I really, really like the live energy, because people can kind of ask questions and stuff. At the moment, I'm doing this like free challenge, and if anyone's listening after September, all the replays will be there, and it's called like Self-Love-Tember, and it's about you claiming your worth. And then I do one-to-ones, and again, it's all kind of it's all done online. And actually, I feel like the thing that we've kind of learned in all of this is, again, adapting and going kind of more online. I mean, I think you can't beat the kind of being with somebody community thing, but I also feel like the kind of power of connecting with community online is huge.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool, and I think so many of us have been able to utilize it and give more time to it over the last few months. So it has been through a lot of sadness and bad things. I think a lot of good things have come from it, and it has allowed people to connect in new ways and put themselves first a little bit as well, because they've been given that time back. They haven't got to commute anymore and do all those other things, so they can actually give themselves some time. And it's exciting to see how that can evolve going forward, I think.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like, I feel like, if you're not working anymore, and people who got furloughed and stuff, for some people it's like you said, kind of giving themselves more time to be able to do this. And then there's like the other side of it where, if you have children and stuff at home, you might have actually lost time. But actually, again, the answer is the same. It shows you the more importance of taking care of yourself. And I feel like we're all collectively getting the same message.
Yeah, different challenges, but same result.
Yeah, and it's the one guarantee that you're going to be with yourself.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And there's a question I like to ask everyone, so I think this is quite a nice time to ask it. Are there any common myths linked to your field that you would like to debunk?
So self-love can be, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit anyway, kind of selfish, vanity, me. I mean, those are kind of like, I would say, the big ones. But what I know for sure, from my work, is actually that when you're taking care of you, and you're not so worried about what everybody else thinks, so you're not so burnt out, you become more loving. It's like, again, to quote Brene Brown, she talks about how the most empathic people have the most fierce boundaries, and they take care of themselves. And that hit me really, really hard, because we get taught love has no boundaries. And actually, if you're saying yes to everyone, if you're trying to keep everybody happy, you get burnt out, you get run down, you get resentful. So there's probably so many things that I could give you, but I think the big takeaway that I would like to give anybody listening is that self-love is important, it matters, and it's love, and everybody benefits when you do it. Everybody. So yeah, I think that would be the most important one.
That's great. I really like that. And are there any general tips or advice that you give people to make that start, to how they can take care of themselves? Are there good ways to start on your wellbeing journey?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that takes us down is our emotions. When our emotions are high, um, we start telling ourselves all these things. Um, you know, we can start feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm not enough. And I think the big thing that I would say is um, be kind when that voice comes up. You know, know that your emotions are not trying to take you down. They're just communicating to you. They are telling you that I'm sad, or I'm hurt, or I'm angry. And you wouldn't beat anybody else up for that. You wouldn't beat your child up for that. You wouldn't beat your friends up for that. You wouldn't tell them to stop being ridiculous. You wouldn't tell them they should be over it already. You just wouldn't. So extend that to yourself. Yeah, extend that to yourself.
Do you think people often get frustrated with their emotions? I feel like I've had this conversation with people before. It's almost, there are good and bad emotions. Like, it's okay to have happy thoughts, but to feel sad or angry, well, that's not so good. There's a lot of positive and negative association with emotions where actually they're all fine.
Yeah.
They're ways that we process things. It's just allowing them to come and go. I think that's the key, rather than feeling bad about having a particular type.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the saddest thing would be not having emotions. We'd become really robotic. And when we realize, as you say, they're not good and bad, they're just as they are, and they're actually for us, and actually used correctly, they actually clear the path for us, because they tell us literally what's going on in our body. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. And they're saying, this lights me up. I don't like this thing. I'm hurt about. And when we stop kind of like pushing that down, so much can kind of change from that. But often, because some of the emotions we don't like can feel hard, we just want to get rid of them, and we just want to fix them. And I was talking to somebody recently about this, but I kind of like, imagine you kind of drop a piece of rubbish kind of like on the floor. If it's on the floor, you can see it and you can look at it and stuff. But if you drop it on the floor and then it gets buried, it's much harder to deal with. And that's often what we do. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I don't want to feel this. Like, shove it down, I don't want to be a burden. But actually, if we actually look at it, like, so if you get a cut on your hand or something, if it's a big cut or something, you're not going to ignore it. You're going to clean it up. You're going to see to it. But with our emotions, they're giving us all these signs and stuff, and we often ignore them, and we tell ourselves we're being ridiculous. But actually, if you almost have this kind of inner dialogue, because you'll have a dialogue regardless if you create a relationship. So that voice is going to come up regardless. So when that voice comes up, instead of you trying to push it away, and when when frustration and stuff comes up, instead of trying to push it away, if you actually say to yourself, I see you're frustrated. I see you, I hear you. You can put your hand on your heart and say, I'm going to care for you, and I've got you. I've got you. So much can change. But often we go, oh my gosh, you're being so inconvenient, you're being ridiculous. And imagine if we did that to a friend, how much that would hurt them. But that's what we do to ourselves. So we end up being the person that hurts ourselves. So yeah, that's what I would say. When your emotions come up, tune in, talk to yourself, but again, we get taught like, people who talk to themselves are crazy. I actually think it's crazy not to talk to yourself. Not to be saying to yourself, oh my gosh, you're sad or you're angry, and ignoring that. I think no wonder we're in pain when we do that, because you wouldn't do that to anybody else and expect them to feel loved. So to do that to yourself, it's no wonder that cycles will repeat and you will not feel enough. And whether this is depression, whether this is frustration, whether this is anxiety, of course you're going to feel that way. if your body is constantly trying to tell you something and you're constantly ignoring it because your emotions roar to be heard.
We don't talk to anyone else more than we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. So it's that being loving to yourself, because you're going to have that dialogue anyway. So you might as well
be kind.
Right. And yeah. And isn't that the thing that's been going around this year anyway? Be kind. And we forget it includes ourselves.
Yeah. It still all starts there, doesn't it? Because if you're being kind to yourself, it's also highly probable you're going to be kind to other people, because why would you not want to be? You wouldn't have that toxic negativity within you that you're then putting onto other people, because you're happy, and happy people generally don't say nasty things to others.
Yeah, happy people want to see other people win and do well. And again, this is where, you know, we got taught self-love is a bad thing, when actually self-love is so loving. Because when you have a great relationship with yourself, you're not judging other people, you're not thinking they have to do certain things to make you happy, because you realize the power of you get to do it for yourself. And people who are judging and criticizing, I can guarantee their relationship with themselves isn't great.
Yeah, I see that too. I couldn't agree with you more. And another big question I like to ask people: what inspires you?
Oh, sisterhood, I reckon. Yeah, I think when I see another woman just going for it, I'm like, yes, that. I feel like as humans, we thrive from community, and seeing what's possible, I think is huge, and expanding your horizons. I believe we have dreams and desires. Again, desire is something we've been taught is bad, and for sure anybody who says that, I mean, good, bad, it's all, you know, perception. Again, I don't think they're wrong in that again, there's not right or wrong. I feel like desire hurts us when we do it without self-love, because again, you know, without self-love we'll never feel enough. But I actually think a lot of our desires kind of come up because it's showing us that the actions to go towards those things will lead us somewhere. As I say, when I desired to have a fitter body, it got me into wellness. So yeah, I think for me it's sisterhood. It's seeing, you know, what's possible, and knowing that what appears to be realistic is not you know, it's not that. You know, seeing people that against all odds, you know, did it anyway. And it's not about the external thing, it's just about breaking kind of the chains of what society told us what we can and can't do, because actually we're more capable. Yeah, we're more capable than ever. So yeah, people who just go, sod it, I'm doing it anyway, that inspires me, you know.
Other people pushing the boundaries allow us to push the boundaries more, doesn't it?
Courage. People who yeah, I guess the voice comes up or society tells them they can't do it and they do it anywhere. Yeah, that inspires me.
Yeah, I love that. And I would like to be able to connect my audience with you should they wish. Where can we find you on the internet? I will pop it all in the show notes too.
Thank you. So my website's kirstydee.com. I have a free group on Facebook called Choose to Rise group, which has like all my free live videos, and then I also have a podcast called Truth and Transformation. So yeah, and just a little disclaimer, because it's called Truth and Transformation, I really get to the nitty-gritty stuff. So you know, I talk about you know, topics that may make people uncomfortable and stuff, and I swear and all the things, because I think when we kind of let, you know, when we get to the real deep stuff, everything changes. So for instance, my first episode, I actually come out as bisexual in my first episode, and I pretty much cry the whole way through. It's very truthful, it's very real, and I feel like we all desire more realness. So if you're ready for like the real deep, no surface level stuff, yeah, then the podcast could be for you.
Give it a listen. Thank you. That's really good to just summarize that so people can be curious.
Yeah, well, not everybody wants kind of somebody that swears and this, that, and the other. And I don't know what somebody else's audience is, so I try to keep it quiet without the swears and stuff on somebody else's podcast. But it's just to give somebody, that kind of heads up.
How raw it is, yeah. That's great. And then you're absolutely right. I do think people can connect with realness, and it's your tribe, isn't it? The people that you connect with. You're not going to appeal to everybody. I'm not going to appeal to everybody, but we appeal to the right people.
Yeah, and again, that's a worthiness thing of, not needing everybody else to get it, and realizing we belong where we can truly be ourselves. And that's why I said that, because I think it's really important to be unapologetically be ourselves and know it's okay if it's not for somebody else. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy, it doesn't mean that they're not worthy, it just means that perhaps not a fit. And that's beautiful, because we're all different.
Exactly, we're all on different wavelengths. We've just got to find our matches.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I absolutely loved this conversation. I can't wait to get everyone's feedback and see what people think. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
There we have it, episode 25 of the Live Fit Now podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Kirsty as much as I enjoyed having it. We would so love to hear your feedback. Don't forget you can pop onto the show notes and click through, or email me directly, hello@livefitnow.co.uk. Once again, I would be so grateful if you could share it with your friends and family through social media, leaving a review, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also guide people to our YouTube channel. All of these podcasts are on there, plus lots of other information. Thank you again for listening. Until next Thursday.